Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us on Merrifield's Gardening Advisor. We've got a terrific show in store for you today. I'm excited. Debbie is taking the day off, but I've got Regina Lancott with us today. And Regina is what I call a superstar.
That's me.
Yeah, exactly. But Regina's got lots of enthusiasm, ideas, creativity, works in our greenhouse. And Regina, you're going to share a lot of great things about houseplants with us today.
I brought a huge assortment to share with everybody. It's a wonderful way to bring joy into your life, and just having them around to deal with them. I'm excited to share that with you today. Yeah,
and I thought, you know, with the days getting a little shorter, temperatures getting colder, this would be an appropriate thing to do. Now, there's a lot going on outside, but the weather hasn't really been cooperating, so there's a lot going on inside.
That's right.
I think we just stocked up our greenhouses yesterday.
We had a huge shipment come from Florida. All our greenhouses received them yesterday, so we are stocked to the gills.
That's fantastic. Well, before we get into that, I do have a few announcements I need to make, and if I could diverge just a little bit, a quick little story. You'll never guess what happened to me yesterday.
What happened?
You'll never believe this one.
Oh, I believe anything with you, David.
This is a true story.
Okay.
Met a couple of our customers yesterday, long-time customers.
Yeah.
Erica and Sue, they've been shopping with us for years, and did you know they've never even knew that we had a TV show?
What?
It's not only they've never watched the show.
And they still talk to you,
they didn't even know it.
They didn't know you were the celebrity,
Right. And the same day, I learned that one of our own employees has never watched the show. Yeah, so we've been doing the show for like 20 plus years, and I can't believe we got shoppers, we got employees, people that haven't been watching. So my first message out today is let your friends know. We got to share the word, you know, word of mouth. Because think about it, hopefully I'm expecting to have 3 new viewers today that we didn't have last week.
Hopefully 4.
I think if we did that every weekend. What, did you get your husband to watch? All right, we're off to a big start there. Good. So, so exactly. We're on here every Saturday morning. We're on at the website. If you missed the show, you can get us at merrifieldgardencenter.com. You can record it. So I hope everybody's watching. Now, what's going on at the Garden Center? First, I wanted to let everybody know about Ladies' Night Out.
Oh, that's fun.
It's coming up soon. What happens, of course, we're converting over to a Christmas shop right now. Working really hard to get the Christmas shop up and looking nice. And so then what's going to happen is sort of our grand opening, or maybe even call a sneak peek there, is the Ladies' Night Out. That's going to be Thursday, November 15th. That's at all stores, all 3 of our locations, a very special evening. So you want to put that on your calendar. And then, of course, following that is our open house weekend, which is, again, the really official grand opening of our Christmas shop.
That's right.
So all you ladies, put that on your calendar. It's a great thing for mothers and daughters to do, or gather your friends up. We do a little bit of wine tasting, hors d'oeuvres, have some entertainment, beautiful Christmas trees. It's just a lot of fun going on. And then, of course, right following after that, we start with some of our holiday workshops. And again, this is coming up in a couple weeks. But we'll have the one on floral design, and that's going to be at our Fair Oaks store. And then out at Gainesville, we'll be talking about creating festive, decorative containers for the holidays. So that's all coming up, and we'll let you know more details as the time arrives. Now, Regina, we were talking about there's a lot of good reasons for growing house plants, or having plants in the house. And one of those is they can actually improve not only our quality of life, but improve our health. Absolutely.
Well, everyone knows the plants, and all plants produce oxygen. And that's always, you know, well known and understood. But what NASA studied and found out about 30 years ago was that many houseplants, all plants actually, remove toxins. And these are elements that are in our air, everyday air, and especially in our homes with all those artificial, you know, carpeting and materials that we have in our homes. We've brought in a lot of poisons really into our air, and what they found was that these plants can actually remove those. And they studied the ability of one versus another in terms of improving and removing those toxins, and have this huge list that's been available. There are even books written about it today, one called How to Grow Fresh Air. And so today here on our table, I have a couple of examples of some of the ones that that will improve your health or your air.
Right, so we're seeing those. I mean, these are really beautiful, but I think you were telling me you've selected some that are even like some new varieties or cultivars.
Yes.
So,
this
for example,
pothos that you have in your hand, yeah, this pothos here, this variegated one, is a new hybrid. I love this. It's got a little bit more of a crinkly feel and more variegation, interesting variegation. The golden pothos was the one that NASA specifically studied, but 30 years ago, this did not exist. Pothos in general are great at removing toxins as well as this.
And of course, I'm always promoting this plant because I think it's probably one of the most durable, easiest things to grow.
No
I've seen these people put them in their offices in total neglect, and they live for years.
On top of the filing cabinet, and they'll forget about it for weeks sometimes, and it will survive and come back for you. I have the Sansevieria, and I brought an example of a bird's nest Sansevieria. And what I like about this is it has this little, it's just a tight, more world.
Here, you guys,
I have a hard time discovering where the camera is. I'm sorry about that. Yes, and so Sansevierias in general will grow very tall, but this is a more compact one. So if you want something that's going to purify your air on your desk at the office, you cannot beat a snake plant or a Sansevieria. They're just, you let it dry completely before you water, and just can't beat those.
Right, and I know we always think of those as, like I said, being tall and upright with just the dark leaves and everything, but an amazing variety that's out there.
And the colors that you get without even having any sun. You don't, low light tolerant.
And again, exactly, low light, and I found you can let that one go quite dry as well.
Same with, and this is a Nanthabella palm, and palms were very highly rated. A lot of palms appeared on that list. Nanthabella palms is one of the moister varieties that like it a little moisture, but again, no sun. You could have this on your desk, and here I just have a pot, a grower's pot that I've stuck into a pretty pot. Again, how easy is that to keep in your office? No potting needed, no nothing. And then the last one that I brought here is the Boston fern. Again, this was, I think, if I remember correctly, the top rated formaldehyde remover. And formaldehyde is one of the worst or the most prominent in our air today. And Boston ferns were very, very highly rated.
And that's great, because I'm always saying, you know, as we feel like we're helping ourselves with gardening, we're really, or we feel like we're helping the plants, in turn, they're helping us. So it definitely is a nurturing, a give and take.
Absolutely.
And super quick, if you want to show that one last one.
Just a Dracaena. This is an example, and I chose, again, unusual new varieties. But how cute is that?
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely adorable.
And again, one of the top air purifiers.
Excellent.
Very easy to grow.
We're going to take a quick commercial break right now. When we come back, we've got a lot of fantastic plants to show you, so stay tuned. We've got an interesting program in store for you today. Beautiful fall scene there. I tell you, a lot of the leaves got knocked off there with Hurricane Sandy.
Yeah. But that doesn't look like my yard, that's for sure.
No, that's the before picture,
yes.
Right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it's a nice time of year, but we're talking about things you can do indoors to keep your green thumbs in shape and keep that kind of gardening vibe going. And so Regina's here with us today, sharing some terrific ideas. And we were just talking about how plants can really improve your indoor environment as far as removing toxins, creating oxygen and everything. And so now I want to start with a couple pictures from our greenhouses, try to entice everybody to come down and visit the greenhouses. And of course, we do have greenhouses at all three of our store locations. This is a scene from our Fair Oaks location where Regina and I work.
That's right. That's my home.
Exactly.
Home away from home.
When you're kind of looking for a plant, you know, if you go out and you say, hey, you know, here's some plants for improving your air quality, but other things you can look for in terms of selecting a plant, what would you advise?
Oh, well, I always start with exposure, of course, how much light that plant is going to get in your home or in your office, wherever you're going to be putting this plant, but also how big a plant. What do you envision? Do you envision a tree? Do you envision a little bush, or is it going to sit on the table? Here, this picture here is showing an example of plants that we keep towards the back of our greenhouse. They are in smaller pots, and they're smaller versions of a lot of what you'll find elsewhere in the greenhouse in their more natural sizing. But great plants. The first two tables that you see right up front, those are like all low light, dry, easy. You cannot beat, cannot, almost, I won't say won't kill, but almost cannot kill.
Yeah, and as you said, it's nice. That gives you an idea just the variety that's out there, both in sizes as well as selection that goes in.
And look at those colors. I mean, none of those plants require sun to get that.
Exactly.
You know?
Now, the others, when we talk about color, of course, people love to have flowers and love to bring flowers in.
Yep.
So a lot of times we are also bringing seasonal color and flowering tropical plants. And I think our next picture gives a little bit of an example of that aspect of the greenhouse.
Right. And this picture was taken probably late, early months of the year, because I see clivias blooming there, and those are once-a-year bloomers, and that's about when we'll start seeing them coming into our greenhouse. So that's always something you'll always find. And it's important, though, that you speak to the people in the greenhouse about those plants, and most of our plants there's signs that will tell you. If you're looking for flowers and you choose one of those that's out in one of the seasonal ones, you have to be aware that for the rest of the year, you won't have that plant, you know, in bloom.
Right, and I'm always trying to emphasize a lot of these plants sometimes are just seasonal color, to give you a few weeks of color, similar like a bouquet of flowers might do, but they're not going to really continue to grow and live indoors.
Nobody wants to be carrying babies all year long either, too. So it's like they have to have a downtime and a rest and a recovery time. There are also some seasonal plants that need to go through a dormancy of sorts, and so that's another thing that you need to be aware of. Sometimes the plant might not even look the same, you know, throughout the year.
And that's one of the things we take pride on, is having knowledgeable staff like yourself to help coach people through this sort of selection process. And then I know it's really important, we're trying to emphasize at this time of year and as we go later in the winter during the cold weather, as far as you go through this, you pick the plants out, and then actually getting them home.
Yes, and I always try to remind people, do not take our tropical plants out into the cold, you know, and try to get them into your car that way. Sometimes just carrying it from the door of our greenhouse to your car and then, you know, into your house later is enough cold to damage the plant. Phalaenopsis orchids are very well known to get bud drop, and that's when the buds will start to turn yellow and then literally just drop off. And that's just from a blast of cold air. So make sure that they're covered. If you go and buy a plant, and I don't want to even say this, buy it elsewhere, and they try to send you home without those leaves covered, ask for a bag. It's not the pot that you want to make sure is covered, but the leaves and the surface area. Right,
and then of course the other extreme is don't leave it in your car while you run off to go do errands, because we have people that we're right across from Costco, and they come in, they do their shopping, they buy the plants, then they go over to Costco, get distracted for a few hours, and that's not good either.
Terrible, terrible. In the winter, obviously, the cold will damage plants. Some are so very sensitive and will immediately turn black, and the damage is so obvious to us. When we see it, we know exactly what happened. It's not sunburn, it's not dryness. It's a very obvious change that occurs, and you know, it's going to take a while sometimes, maybe kill. It might take a while to recover, but
assuming you get your home plant home safely, you had some ideas of now how to stage it, present it, actually make it look special.
Well, one thing I always ask people is, if you can, it's much better to allow the plant to acclimate to its new environment. It's being taken from a greenhouse where people who know what they're doing are watering and caring for it. It's got different exposure, different watering and temperatures and humidity. And so when you take a plant home, ideally don't add to that stress by then repotting it, because you're changing everything, and now you're going to change its pot as well. So keep it in its pot. And one thing you can do, it's so easy and so simple. And here's a perfect example of seasonal color. I brought a cyclamen, and the cyclamen is again in its grower's pot that came from the greenhouse. I simply put it into a pretty pot, and that's it. And you're done. And ideally, really, the best time to repot a plant is in the spring. So here you've got a couple of months of acclimation and enjoyment. And
exactly. And just putting it in a nice pot suddenly makes it a real centerpiece for your home.
Totally dresses it up. I brought another example of the before and after. Here we go. Excuse me here. This is an anthurium, and these are just wonderful plants. Again, some of the top air purifiers. This plant, and I don't know if it's going to be as visible from the camera, but if you can look at the leaves, if there's any way you can see how just kind of dirty or white. You see all the white residue and dust and maybe some chemicals that have deposited on the leaves. This is usually how we receive them from growers throughout the United States and sometimes, you know, Hawaii even, so off land, you know, mainland. But that's how you receive them. This one here, I have now wiped it down with just a damp paper towel, something soft material to remove those toxins, and you dress it up that way. So it looks better already, right? And then, sorry, again. Now we have the third example. This one, I have used a product called Leaf Shine. And we sell this in all our greenhouses. It's an aerosol spray. There's this pump spray, but it comes off a little heavier. And so then you might have to go back and wipe the surface of the leaves. So the aerosol has always been our preferred method. So here's the product. It's a poke-on. Very, very popular. But then what I wanted to show you was, all I did was, again, I just stuck it in a pretty pot. I'm sorry about this. I'm a novice to this camera.
Oh, you're doing great.
But here it is. I put it into my new pot, and I'm just going to take maybe a little moss and lay it around the surface on top.
Here, I'm going to pull this out front and center where maybe we get a little better look at what you're doing here.
And so here, it looks like it's been potted in there. Nobody needs to see that there's a plastic pot underneath inside, and it just looks beautiful.
It really is. Presentation is everything. So that's I think some great pointers. You take a plant that's pretty, but really just with a few minutes of effort, shine the leaves up, clean them, put in the pot, the moss, and something a nice thing to present as a gift.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We do foil for free. All our greenhouses do that as well, but you can't beat something that's going to bring out the color. And I chose this pot because, again, it's going to bring out that lime or light colored green from the stems, and it just shows up much better that way.
Excellent. Well, we're going to have to take another quick commercial break. Stay with us, because when we come back, again, we're going to delve into a variety of different plants you might want to include in your home. Thank you for joining us. I'm Merrifield's Gardening Advisor, and today we're talking about the amazing world of tropical plants and house plants, and Regina Lancott's with us today from our Fair Oaks store. Now, Regina, you're always saying know your plants, kind of know their background, their history.
Absolutely.
Let's start with that.
Well, I mean, above all, it's like knowing your friend and knowing their background helps you understand there's a depth that's created in your relationship with that person. And it's the same way with your plants. All these plants are hardy somewhere else in the world. But those environments are very different from ours. And so understanding what that environment is like helps you then better meet its needs, but also to enjoy every aspect of it and all the different unusual things that they do, you know?
Yeah. So let's start. We brought some pictures in to use as an example.
Oh, here's a staghorn fern in a tree. And this is something that some ferns are epiphytes. And this is a word that we're going to use today a lot, I guess. Most people think of plants living in the ground and soil. And plants live in water. They live in air, and really they're on trees. And so here in Virginia, if you look up your trees right now and deciduous trees, you probably see a lot of mistletoe. Those are parasites. They're taking nutrients from the tree. These plants that we're showing today are not taking anything from the tree other than they're hosting their home, their habit, where they're going to live. And here's the perfect example. Staghorn ferns in the tropics live up in the trees. They're able to get the nutrients they get from runoff of decaying debris, and there's a lot of humidity in the air where they live, so they meet their needs just living in the trees.
Right, so of course the challenge is trying to recreate that environment when you get home, and I think you brought one in to show us.
I did. I mean, we do sell, excuse me again. Okay, so here we have one that we've actually displayed closer. I'm going to wait for it. Here we go. I guess we're having a little problem here with the camera, but yeah, Staghorn ferns we sell in little starter pots in this little 4-inch pot here, and then you can get them larger in hanging baskets, which are glorious. And of course, they're called Staghorn because they resemble staghorns. But here we have one that's been mounted on a plaque, so you hang it like it would be found in nature. And I think that's always really fun and fascinating to recreate that habitat for the plant. It's been mounted on a lot of sphagnum moss here underneath to help retain more moisture, because in our homes, as you know, in the winter, it's almost desert dry because of our forced hot air. So this will help to retain that moisture a little longer for the plant to be able to get what it needs.
That's true, and that's just some of the amazing things about plants, like you said. So that's one that you would just find growing in the trees, so there's no reason you could put that in a pot of soil, but I love this kind of presentation where it's sitting up there.
Absolutely, yes.
Well, and talking about epiphytes, I think we've got another picture coming up of an example of a really unusual plant.
Oh, fun, yes. A lot of these live in marshy bog areas, and this is one of those insectivores, the carnivores. The students that come and visit our greenhouses always enjoy seeing these. They feed on insects. They attract insects into those pitchers, and that's how they get the nitrogen and phosphorus that lacks in their environment. And this particular one might not be an epiphyte in nature, but there are nepenthes, or what are called pendulant pitcher plants, that are actually epiphytes, true epiphytes. And this, and I had my hand behind one of the pictures, so you can see that they can get bigger than my hand and can actually catch mice, lizards, poor little frogs.
Yeah, again, just amazing the adaptations that plants have made, like you said, where it lives in a nutrient-poor environment and other ways to get that. And did you bring any other carnivores in you want to show, or guess?
I actually did. Well, here's a baby nepenthes. I mean, we sell many varieties of different carnivores or insectivores. That's a baby of a pitcher plant. This one here is one of my favorites. Oh, David, I didn't bring glasses. Oh, you have your glasses. Yeah. I wanted you to see. This is a butterwort, and a butterwort is another form of carnivore, insectivore, and it's excellent at catching fungal gnats. So many of our customers come in. I've got these little fruit flies in my house, and often what they are fungal gnats. And these guys breed in the moist soil around your plants. But look at the surface of this butterwort, David, and tell me, is that not?
I am going to need my glasses for that one. Oh, look at it, guys, covered with fungus gnats.
Yes.
A great natural control.
Yes. And so it's got a sticky surface. The insect will die and decay on that surface, and the plant has the ability to absorb those nutrients of the decay. And so what you see there are just exoskeletons, or the leftovers of those dead insects. And nature is just amazing this way, but you notice that the flower is high above that surface, because you need pollinators, but you don't want to kill them either.
Oh,
you understand?
Absolutely.
So for the reproductive process, we're going to need to keep those safe.
You know what we're going to do? I'm going to interrupt, because we got so many plants. Let's go back to our pictures real quick.
Sure. I'm sorry. Yes.
I know. No, don't be sorry. I mean, this is great. Let's see. What's our next picture coming up there?
Oh, here's another epiphyte. This is an orchid, and the majority of orchids that you find available for sale are epiphytes. These guys actually live in trees, and that helps you understand, again, they are not in soil. They're not going to be moist and wet all the time. So here's a perfect example of how easier it is to keep something when you understand where it comes from.
Yeah. And another very popular epiphyte, we'll go into our next picture, are the bromeliads.
Oh,
you know, Regina and I were talking, we could do a whole show just on the epiphytes, the ones that don't even touch the ground.
Exactly. I mean, definitely. It's some of the most beautiful flowers we buy today, bromeliads, orchids, live in trees. And so here's a bromeliad. The interesting thing about a bromeliad is that the bromeliads, unlike their plants that live in soil, where they get the moisture from the soil, bromeliads actually absorb the water through their leaves. So in the middle of the cup there is where the water is retained when it rains, and then it slowly is able to absorb it, right in that middle there.
Exactly. And those will give you color for a long, long time.
Months. Yes.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break right now, but when we come back, we've got other fascinating plants to show you and other tips on how to care for them and keep them looking great. So stay with us. Okay, in our last segment, Regina, we were talking about plants that grow up in the trees, the epiphytes. Now we're going to kind of go to the other extreme and talk about plants that grow in extremely wet, boggy conditions.
That's right, and unfortunately, I kind of jumped the gun, didn't I, David? I shared some of our other carnivores before we had decided we were going to do it, but here, these are actually bog plants. And the interesting thing, what's just so fascinating to me, is that here these plants have adapted to this nutrient deficient environment where it rains and just constantly wet, and all the nutrients are being washed away from their soil and their habitat. And so what do? What they catch insects who have eaten from other plants.
Exactly, and our best example is that we've got a picture of the best known example of that.
Oh yeah, no, let's see that one. Oh, the ever popular Venus flytrap. Now these guys are just fascinating, and the students and children that come to our greenhouse, this is the one that they always come in looking for, because it does the insect catching in an active way. So you see the actual catching of it. Those little 2 leaves, if you can see the little red centers there of the open leaves, and those are modified leaves. When they have 3 little trigger hairs on each side, and when those trigger hairs are touched 2-3 times, that's when they know that there's an insect crawling through maybe, and it wasn't just a drop of water that just suddenly dropped. But nature's amazing, because once it closes, it takes a while for it to figure out, is this going to be food or not, to reopen. It's worse for the wearer every time it reopens. And so, there's these little safety mechanisms built in. And if it's food, it'll close up tight, and within a week or so, it should be insect is gone.
Exactly. It's just incredible the adaptations plants have made. And our next picture shows the other extreme. Again, we're talking about plants that are adapting to extreme environments.
And it's funny, these are succulents and cacti. And actually it's cacti and other succulents. And because all cacti are succulents, but not all succulents are cacti. So it's cacti and other succulents that you'll find in all our greenhouses. This is in my home, away from home. But what's so cool about these guys is they've had to live in environments where maybe it doesn't rain for more than once a year. So they've come up with ways to hold that water in. And every little bit of water you give them, they're going to soak it in, and they'll actually do it to a point where the cells will just collapse, and just burst, literally, and you'll have overnight, your succulent is mush. And so this is, yes, it's an easy plant to care for, but if you overwater, it's not going to be easy.
Okay, now super quick, you get to show like one or two of your favorite succulents.
Oh my!
I know you've got the whole tray of them there.
I did bring some of my really fun.
I'm only going to give you a challenge, show you like.
He makes it hard for me, David. I love this.
Good, you picked my favorite too.
This is commonly known as a mother of thousands.
Oh, good. No, they can see that.
Can you see this? Mother of thousands. And why? Because if you look at the edges of the leaves, look at the unusual way that it propagates itself. It puts out these little plantlets at every tip of the leaf, and if David, again, if you get your glasses on, you're going to notice there are roots already on those little plantlets, and when they're ready to root themselves into the soil, they'll just drop from the mother's wing.
This was one of the first plants I got when I was a child. I still remember. I think I ordered it out of a comic book kind of thing, or the back of the Sunday paper type thing. Exactly, and it's so fascinating. So it is a great way to get kids engaged in gardening.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's a succulent, so again, you want to let it dry completely, and I'm serious about that, completely before you water again.
Yeah. Now, so the whole thing, of course, is understanding the environment that these plants prefer and where they grow in, and then we need to try to recreate that at home. So I'm always talking to people about lighting. Again, we'll use some pictures kind of illustrate this, where you need to evaluate the type of lighting conditions that you have in your house.
So many of the houseplants we find in our greenhouses were probably in nature grow in the understory or the floor, forest floor maybe, and so they're not getting direct light, and they might actually burn. And here in the front of the window there, and that's a morning, you can see the sun is coming in at an angle. That's a morning sun, you said, I think east window. And you have a peace lily, a spathiphyllum there. Those really don't like sun. They'll burn if they get too much sun. They will even turn like this pale, washed out color if they're getting too much light even.
But I think our next picture shows an example I'm going to call filtered light, where there's a little bit of a
And that's probably maybe
shade
an
in front
areca
of the
palm there.
window.
It's hard to say, but again, those are palms that are going to take or be able to tolerate a little bit lower light. So that's a perfect place to put a plant that needs that. Further away, if it's, I don't know if that's Chinese evergreen. Aglaonemas, those are some of our lowest light tolerant. You could have that on the opposite end of the room, just like it's there.
Exactly. So you're matching plants like we've talked about, the watering, the moisture, the lighting, and now you have like 2 minutes to try to go through the potting and the soil mixes if you can do that.
You make it hard for me, David.
I know I do.
And I didn't even bring my potting mix. What I did want to say is, again, understanding the plant where it lives makes it, it's very important that you understand that so that you choose the appropriate potting mix. The Merrifield potting mix that we carry is an excellent potting mix for most of your plants that you have in your home today, the ones that live in soil. It's got decaying debris, leaf mulch and maybe some bark in there. But for some of the plants such as succulents that don't have a nutrient-rich environment, you're going to want something that's going to be much lighter, it's going to dry faster. And so something like a Pro Mix or even the succulent mix, you can actually buy a specific succulent mix that's going to be primarily sphagnum peat moss, some perlite probably to add some drainage to that medium, and also maybe some lime because the sphagnum moss is very acidic, and so it's going to balance that all out.
Right, to the extreme where I see like this orchid you brought in is actually in bark.
Well, actually, yeah, and you know, in a greenhouse, it probably would do well. In my home, I might have added a little bit of sphagnum moss to that because these guys live on the forest floor. Now, most of the ones you find in our greenhouse are going to be tropical varieties of this. There are hardy ones that you can find here in Virginia. This is not an example of one. This is from Hawaii. But is that not just the most gorgeous, beautiful plant? And this is what people commonly know as a lady slipper.
Absolutely. Well, I tell you, we've got hundreds and hundreds of different types of plants in the greenhouse. We just don't have the time that we'd like to have to share it all with you. So you're going to have to come into the greenhouse to see it for yourself.
Or next time, 2-hour show might do it.
I've been pushing for that, but nobody else is listening to me.
Yeah.
But come to the greenhouse, talk to Regina and our other great experts, and they'll help you go through the whole selection process and learn about these fascinating plants. But give us a call this morning. We are going to be taking your phone calls, so we still have a couple segments ahead. Chance to call in, talk to Regina, pick her brains, get ideas and stuff. So before we got the commercial break, give us a call. You can see the phone numbers right up there on your screen. I can't see it myself. Well, it's 703-387-1046. Give us a call. Welcome back, everybody, to Merrifield's Gardening Advisor. We're so glad you could join us today. This is my favorite part of the show when we get to talk to our viewers. And our first caller is Gretchen, calling in from Forestville. How are you doing today?
I'm doing just fine. How are you?
Fantastic.
Hi, Gretchen.
Love your show. Hi, Regina. How are you?
Good,
Love
thanks.
your show. I've been watching for the 20 years that other people haven't been, but, this is my question.
Good. Well, share the
have-
word. Spread it around with your neighbors and friends.
Right. I have now 4 Phalaenopsis orchids.
Yes.
The very first one I've had for 5 years. This year bloomed twice for me, so I was just elated about that.
Wow.
But I've not taken it out of the pot that my daughter gave it to me in, which is the regular small pot that you have there in front of you. And I'm not sure when I should transplant it. It's in bark, and it's in the living room where it's been for the 5 years, and I just don't know what to do with that.
5 years, Gretchen. Wow. It's important that you repot it right away. Typically, we ask that you not repot while the orchid is in bloom because you don't want to take the focus away from the flowers. Roots will have to reestablish themselves. One thing, though, is that the bark that it's in is probably decomposed or has decomposed, and what it's in now is probably closer to a soil than it is a bark. So it definitely needs to be repotted. If it was in just moss, that might not have been as urgent as a situation, but with bark, 5 years is way, way too long. So if you don't know how to do it, come into our store. We'll help you. We've got all the materials you'll need. We also repot as a service, and a lot of people who have just a few orchids find it easier just to bring them in and have us take care of that. We take it out, clean out the roots, we feed it, we add, you know, whatever it needs in terms of medium, and so that might be an easier option.
Okay. Now, the other 3 that I have, the top of it has moss in it. Should I remove that, or I just have those
when you
about a
repot,
month?
and typically they say 1 to 2 years, you know, you should repot regardless. Definitely if they're in bloom, I would not choose to do that right now.
Right.
But the moss, you want to take it out just to check the roots, because sometimes there'll be some decay, some rot going on, and that can spread to, you know, further up the roots, and you could lose orchids very quickly if you don't know what's going on underneath. So
Okay,
it's a good thing to repot.
it's normal that those roots start coming out of the pots. That's norm.
The roots you're saying, those are aerial roots?
Yes.
Yes, those are aerial roots, and in nature they have roots that will hold onto the tree. Some of them will actually absorb the nutrients, and then some will also be able to absorb humidity from the air. I mean, they're very capable roots, so they have a function. Don't cut them off. Okay. When we pot, we'll try to put them into the pot as much as we can. But
okay,
yeah.
all right.
Well,
thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you for watching, and thanks for calling this morning. We'll move on to our next caller. It's from Fredericksburg, Virginia. Another question about orchids, I think.
Wow.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing fine.
Hi.
Great. I missed your name. What was that?
Dottie.
Dottie? Good to hear from you this morning.
Hi,
How can we
Dottie.
help you?
I was asking about once the orchids bloom, do I cut the stem?
Is this a Phalaenopsis, the moth orchid? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yes. The part that has bloomed will not rebloom. So down below the first flower would be where you want to make the cut, just above that node. Our instruction sheets will say just 3 nodes up. So if you count from the bottom of where the stem starts, the flower stem, you want to count 3 nodes up and cut just above that node without damaging that node. And the reason is there's always a possibility that you'll get a secondary spike from there. And you know, I always weigh if I'm going to cut the whole thing off, because every new leaf means that at some point you're going to get another spike. The spikes come in between the leaves, and the leaves are alternating. So if you got a spike on this side, next time you're going to get one on this side. So leaves are important. But if you only have a few leaves, secondary spikes are never as fabulous as the first. And if you only have a few leaves to produce that food through photosynthesis, you might want to give all that energy to the next primary spike. And so what I often do if it's a small orchid is I cut the whole thing off.
Fantastic.
Well, thank you. These are orchids. I lost a son in May,
Oh,
and
I'm so
these
sorry.
are orchids that were I brought back home from New York
Oh,
from his funeral service.
oh.
Oh,
So
let's-
I was wondering about that. It's done blooming.
Yeah, Dottie, you know, you might just find it easier to bring it in and have us show you. Or maybe even do it for you. And just make sure you cover those leaves and whatever spike is left with maybe just a trash bag over that if you bring it in, because it is cold today.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay?
Well,
Look forward
thank
to
you.
Thank
seeing
you very much. I watch you every week.
Oh, thank you, and take good care of those orchids.
Okay, honey. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to our next caller, who is Ashley. And there is something weird going on this morning, and it's not just you.
Well, thanks, David.
But we had a caller from Forestville, Fredericksburg, and now Frederick.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know. How are you doing this morning?
Good. I have a fava bean plant that I planted at school.
Okay.
And the lady that was on the telephone back there told me it was poisonous. Is that true?
Fava beans?
F-A-V-A?
I wasn't aware of that. Do you know anything about it, Regina?
I don't. Are you saying poisonous to people? Or
Well,
animals?
she just said it was poisonous, so I thought...
People
I'd
eat
take-
fava beans.
Right. Yeah.
And also, can I grow that inside?
It's going to be difficult to grow inside. Now I have to tell you, there's you might want to double check the information on an internet search, but I don't think there's anything poisonous about fava beans. Now, did you use this in a science project or something?
My teacher thought we were going to use it, but we actually did not have to use it.
Okay.
And
Here's the problem growing those indoors is that's a plant that really needs full sun. It needs really, really sunny conditions. That's hard to do indoors and everything. So if you want to, I mean, you could put it in as bright and sunny a window as you can possibly find and try to grow it. But in all honesty, the chance of you actually getting it to bloom and produce a flower indoors is very unlikely, unless you've got any secret tricks to it.
Artificial lights would, supplement, but they are fast growers, and so you're going to find it's going to grow, overreach its, your location, maybe your situation. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for watching. We're being told we have to take a break, but again, fava beans, you can grow them outside. They love the summer, the warmth, the heat, and the sun, but inside, not much good. Stay tuned. We've got one more segment ahead with your phone calls, so we look forward to hearing from you. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and we're going to just jump right back into the phone calls. And Joan, thank you for holding on. How can we help you this morning?
I'm interested in planting or hanging some spider plants. Do the variegated ones, do they need more light than the plain, green ones?
Oh, good question.
That is. Yes, typically variegated plants are going to require more light, not to survive, but to keep that variegation vibrant. And so if it doesn't get enough light, what you'll notice is that maybe the white will start turning maybe a pale green, and so you don't have that strong contrast that makes it so interesting.
And you just happen to have one with you.
I brought one today.
Oh, did you?
This is a favorite of mine. It's a variety of spider plant, but it's called the Bonnie, and it's curly. And that's what I love about it. Again, did you know that this is one of the top air purifiers as well?
I had heard that long ago, that
That's a spider
particular that particular variety is, or is it any spider plant is?
For purifying the air, I think it's pretty much any spider plant's going to do a good job for you.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
You just like this curly one.
I like the curls, yes.
I've never seen that one.
Yeah, no, we have these. They're called Bonnie.
How successful is it to plant them by seed? Can you?
I've never done that. I don't even know. I couldn't tell you how large those seeds are. The flowers are fairly small, so I can't imagine the seeds are too big. But they're so easy to propagate just from the little plantlets. This is a plant that, do you see the little plantlet here at the tip? They'll put down roots very shortly. There's a little stub right here that's already started, but as soon as you get a little bit of root here, you can actually cut it off this stem and plant it, or you can stick it into soil, pin it down in soil, and it will root, and then once the root has developed, you just cut that off again, separate it from its mother plant.
Right.
This way, sorry. Yeah.
And you suggest that you feed them?
Yes. Typically, we don't recommend feeding through the winter. Winters, the sun is so much milder than any time in the year. You encourage very leggy growth, and even with plants that are not sun lovers. I mean, if it's really deficient for nutrients, and by all means, go ahead and feed it. Maybe dilute it a little bit. But if you can wait till spring, there's no reason why I shouldn't be able to wait for spring.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Another fun, easy plant to grow. But
oh, yes.
see, we have time to get our next caller in here. I think John is calling in from Oxon Hill, Maryland, right? Oh, Henry. I'm not reading my notes correctly. Henry, how are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you very much.
Hi, Henry.
How are you doing today?
I'm fine.
Oh, fantastic. And how can we help you?
First of all, I just wanted to tell you I enjoy your show. My problem is...
Yes, we're listening.
I have a lot of houseplants, And in the dirt, I've noticed that I have a lot of these little teeny tiny silver grayish looking bugs that are all in the dirt, and I've tried everything to get rid of them, and eventually they fly around. They come out and they get wings. What can I do to get rid of these?
Yeah, he's talking about fungus gnats, which we know well. That's a very common problem.
Very common.
Do you have any suggestions on that?
Well, there's lots of things you can do to, first of all, they lay their eggs in that moist soil. They're attracted to moist soil. In the summertime, when you're speaking outside on your deck, maybe you'll start noticing the fungal gnats flying around your mouth. It's because of that humidity. They're attracted to that. So maybe allowing the surface of your soil to dry a little bit will help not attract the adult fungus gnats to lay eggs in that soil. They don't eat your plants, they're just a nuisance. But the fungus gnats do eat decaying debris or material in the soil, and sometimes they might feed on a fine root. So you want to try to kill or break that cycle. Sometimes even putting a thin layer of sand on top of the soil does not allow the adults to lay the eggs in that soil or the larvae to mature into adult form. So that breaks the cycle. There are products, though, David, right?
Right,
Correct?
and that's what I was going to say. If you're able to come in, again, we have choices, both organic as well as chemical options to actually treat the soil. So we sell everything from nematodes, specifically that parasitize the larvae, to bacteria, BT, that parasitize it, to insecticidal drenches that you can put in there. So there's a lot of different options that are available to you on that. These are sometimes they're specialty products, though. I don't know that you're going to find them any place except for Maryfield.
Okay, fine.
No, that's very true.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I think we've run out of time for our callers today. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, can I say one thing?
Yes.
I just wanted to say David and many wonderful horticulturists work at our information desks, or our plant clinics. And we encourage people to bring in their plants when they have problems. Bring in samples in a Ziploc baggie. It will be so much easier for us to help you work through your problems and resolve them if we could see what's going on. Don't forget to cover them if you're bringing them through the winter. Don't wait till it's too late. Absolutely. We are Maryfield Garden Center. I would say not Miracle Garden Center. We can't revive the dead.
Okay. Thank you for saying that. Thank you so much for being here. No, I hope you all watch next week. We've got a great show there, which is going to be preparing for winter, little tips and things you can do to keep your garden outside looking great. We'll see you then.